Great. Thank you guys. I wanted to welcome Brad Baker, co-founder of the Open Heart Media Company. And we're really privileged to have him join us, give us his time and some of his insights. And Brad, thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much. I really am honored to be on the show.
So I was looking over information about you beforehand and learning more about you, and you have had such a diverse and interesting career. You've been very entrepreneurial, you've worked within various professional industries. Can you please tell us more about your experiences?
Sure, sure. Thank you. It pretty much all started in the mid 90s. I got out of the military. I had a career in the military. And I got out and moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I really didn't have a game plan of what I was going to do. Um, and it's pretty typical as you come out of the military. A lot of guys have this 5-year curve, or girls, and they're really not sure what they're going to do. So I kind of bounced around and, just did things. And I used that time really to learn about that transition process and what it was like to come out of the military, very structured, very rigorous, um, and come into what we call the civilian world, and just learn from people and watch people and understand, how people communicated and interacted because there was a lot different. So it was just a great opportunity. I was in a position where I didn't have to really get a job right away. So I got just a great chance to explore different things, and I met a lot of great people. Um, and as things happen, a job here, a job there, you meet people, you network. Um, and after a lot of different things, I actually became a private investigator here in Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, and in doing that, again, you meet a lot of people. And I started a group separately, and that was my first company that I started, and it was called ASG Worldwide. And basically, we were a group of former military and federal officers or agents, and we would go out and find missing people. Most of them were dealing with some type of mental health or substance abuse issue. And so our goal was to find them, locate them, intervene, and then get them into treatment. So, and that's actually, I was thinking back this morning when we were preparing. I think that's actually somewhere around the time frame I met Kate Caravella. So, um, a great person to meet who taught me, just a whole lot about that, about the world. We shared a lot of information. And then I went into doing interventions, training with some of the people, David Burrs of the world, Ed Stories, Judy Cranes, just a lot of people that really impacted my life. Um, Kate Caravella, amazing career in what they did. And the biggest takeaway that I had, and people ask me all the time about being an entrepreneur or starting your own company, and the competition that's out there. And what I learned real quick was there's two types of people. There's those who are going to hold everything in, and this is my world, and you shouldn't be in it. And there's going to be those that just want to open up and want to explain to you, hey, here's the things that I've done, and here's the goods and the bads, and help learn from me. And everybody works together. And when you can find those type of people, that's really how you grow, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. And the failing is actually what is the teaching piece of it. Um, and just having those people and building that network, that was the single most important piece that I could ever have. That I knew I could pick up the phone and call somebody and say, mentor me, guide me, help me through this situation. So it was just an incredible journey. And we ran that company for almost 20 years, doing a lot of different things, building sober living houses, building treatment facilities. But it was all the same. It was surround yourself by people that would really work with you, and you would share information and collaborate together. And by doing that, it just made the world a better place. It made our industry a better place. And personally, it touched my life and just made it so much more exciting to wake up and say, today we're going to do this. Kind of a long answer, sorry.
No, it's great. Thank you for sharing that. Um, you've had a lot of transitions. You
Right.
just mentioned the military to civilian, figuring out your passions, transitioning out of things that you were unhappy with, and starting new endeavors. What have been some of the challenges that you've experienced along the way? I mean, you mentioned some failures and that those were learning moments for you. Um, how what were some of the standout challenges that you can look back on?
Right. I think the number one, the first one was not listening to my head, because my head would tell me, why are you doing this? What happens if it fails? Just the negative thoughts that I would wake up with and the anxiety. And I had a very good friend, um, Cindy Thomas, and she told me one time, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And just before her passing, she bought a little plaque, and it's still in my house. And it was, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And that just sort of became my motto. And I had to stop listening to my doubtful self, and I had to put more energy into my positive self. And that was probably the single, you know, money's money. Um, you know, Whatever you're going to get into, as far as what type of work or whatever, that's it's all the same. It's all a business plan. It's all a business model. It's all a passion. But the thinking and the mind was the biggest challenge for me. And once I was able to overcome that, when I transitioned from doing interventions, to going and finding missing people, that was a huge transition. I mean, I walked away, I'm sorry, let me back up. Kate can edit that. Um, when I was a private investigator, I had a very good job, and I talked about going out and doing interventions and finding missing people. And the moment I actually stepped into the office and said, "Hey guys, I'm leaving," that was huge for me, because I had struggled for months and months of all the self-doubt.
Mhm.
And the irony to that story is, March 15th at 12 o'clock, I walked out of that office. And at 3 o'clock, I had the first person call me and say, "Hey, I've got a missing person." And ironically, I turned right around and I hired that PI group to help me, because I didn't even have anything in place yet. So, I believe in the universe. I have faith, and getting through that mindset, and not and being able to overcome the fear was the biggest thing. And then as you meet other people who have done and gone the journey you've gone, you understand, okay, I'm somebody who's on the same parallel journey. It may not be in the same space. That was the biggest one, I think, for me, was just the being able to get out of my head. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know with Breaking Forward Coaching that we offer executive and professional coaching to individuals, and there's it's very similar, right, to counseling, the mentoring, although we do tend to become very specific and very focused
Hmm.
on certain issues or tasks that the coachee wants to focus on. Um, for you, it sounds like you yourself have had a lot of mentors along the way. Like you gave a shout out to Kate.
Yeah.
Who else has been there for support or guidance or helping you set up a plan?
Yeah. In the very beginning, there was an interventionist up in the Hamptons. His name was David Burr. And he kind of gave me my start. I used to find he was one of my I used to go find a lot of people who needed to be located over on the West Coast. And the funny story was, one time I found him a little quicker than what David had anticipated, and he was still in New York. And he's like, "Look, you've sat through 100 interventions with me. If you haven't figured out how to do it, you're smarter than that." And we actually did the intervention, and I drove the person all the way to a treatment program, and he was just like, "There you go." And he actually set me up for an entire year, and taught me and mentored me and mirrored me and showed me the right way to do it. Um, I As I transitioned and I moved into other things, what I found was there were a lot of people who had many more years in the treatment industry than I had. And if you would just ask people the questions, and if you would just, trust, the biggest thing that I saw were people would always go to more experienced people, and their questions were, how can I be successful? How can you help me? And my question was always, what were the things that taught you the biggest lessons? And can I listen to you? I never asked for work or anything like that. I just wanted to always hear their stories. And, David was a great one. Cindy Thomas took me in and taught me about adolescence and all the treatment facilities way back in the day when Aspen owned everything, and Seuss and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she really mentored me. She taught me, I'm not in recovery. She taught me about recovery because she was,
Mm-hmm.
shared her stories. I got to meet a lot of people and hear about their challenges. Cindy was a huge, um, she probably spent more time mentoring me than anybody. And then obviously, working with people, we mentioned again, Kate,
Mm-hmm.
was a great person. Uh, Judy Crane, amazing, taught me so much down at the guest house. She used to be with the Refuge, started that program. Um, just people, Doug Talbot, who started Talbot Treatment Center. I would go sit in Dr. Talbot's office for lunch every other Friday, and he would just talk to me, and we would just go over things. Um, I don't know. I was just so fortunate because there were a lot of people, Bob with Karen, Doug, TMN with Karen. I mean, just people that I could call. Rob Wagner. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, my goodness, he gave me my first opportunity at building a treatment program or being part of it. So just really some solid people that just really had how can we all work together to be better? And I loved that saying that we always had. So those were the people, and then I have to be, my wife. I mean, she was the rock because I had two, we still have children, but they were young at the time, and I'm like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do this? How can I do this? And she was just like, hey, man, be calm, be still. And, there's a plan, but you're way overthinking this. And just she really kept me centered and she kept me focused. And people who know her are just like, yeah, I'm kind of the guy who's on top of the roof yelling and screaming, and she's like, hey, idiot, get off the roof. So it works out well for us.
Tell her I like the be calm and be still advice.
Yeah, yeah, all the time.
Can you tell us about Open Heart Media?
Yeah, so this was a big change, and this is one of those, getting out of your comfort zone. Um, I got to a point where the team at ASG, we had done what we wanted to do, and people were, ready to retire. And a lot of the guys and girls, two, three of them, they all had federal pensions, and so this was just another job. And they were like, "Hey, we're ready to retire. We don't want to run around the country." Um, and so I kind of got out of my comfort zone, and I built a couple sober living programs with a great guy, Carter Pope, here in Atlanta. Um, and it was great. I loved doing it. It was a great experience, but it just wasn't me. I just didn't have that passion. Um, and so I just had to really look inside and say, okay, what's your next? And I'm in the I break it in thirds. I'm coming into the third of my life. I'm gonna be 60 years old, and it's like, okay, you've done all these things. What do you want to do now? I personally want to get on a 47-foot catamaran and sail the world. Wife's not so much about that. So we had to figure out what we could do. And in sitting and just spending time thinking and just really praying on it and talking with my wife, I came to I came to the point in my life where, okay, here's what I'm going to control. I'm going to control my time. I'm going to control my finances, and I'm going to control my movement. And if I control those three things for the last 30, 40 years of my life, I'll be very happy. And in doing that, what do you want to do? I enjoy building things. I enjoy people, hey, here's a problem and coming up with solutions. So, long story short, I was mentoring a treatment program for youth in Alpharetta, Georgia. Met a guy who was just fantastic at editing, videography. Met another gentleman who was really good at photography. Another guy, podcasts, all these things. And I was joking around. I was like, in the treatment industry, a lot of people's social media really is horrible. We should just form a company and we should do it. And obviously I have no creative skills and nothing. And I was like, look, I'll be behind the scenes guy and I'll just cover, I'll build it out. You guys. So 18 months later, we now have a company called Open Heart Media, and we have gone from working with therapists and private practices to working with treatment programs to, now we're working with, uh, programs and companies that are, you know, over 12 million in sales, and we're doing all their work for them, and we're running digital ads and campaigns, and a company's coming out with a candy bar and we're doing everything for them. It's so different, and it's nothing. I mean, everybody who sees me, they're like, hey doc, what are you doing digital media? Why aren't you still working overseas or doing something? I'm like, I get to work out of my house. I control my time, my movement, and my money. And that's just where I want to be now. So it's really, it has also taught me a lesson of be open to change, because I never, you know, when I was 16, I never would have figured I'd be in the military. Last thing on my mind. But when
Mhm.
I was 25, I never thought I'd be running around helping people get into rehab. When I was 45, I never thought I would run a digital marketing company. But being open and listening to my heart and not listening to my head, and surrounding myself again by people who know what they're doing and have the experience, you
Right.
know, and not being afraid to reach out to people and say, hey, I don't know. Can you help me? Can you teach me? And there's some solid people in Canton, Georgia, where I live, in Alpharetta, Georgia, where our other offices, who have just really sat down with me, who are in that same space I am. They're in their last 40 years. They've been very successful, and they sit down and they just mentor and they teach and they help coach you. And if you're going to go out and you want to start your own company and you want to start your own business, I can't see doing it without somebody who's going to coach you or mentor you, and look for the services that you all provide, because it's like being on an island and you don't know how to build a fire or a house or anything. But if you had somebody that you could, you know, get on a Zoom call with, and they could teach you how to build a fire or build a house, why wouldn't you take that?
Yeah.
Um, so that's just it. Be calm, be still, listen, find people who have been there, and listen to them, and then don't listen to the negative in your head. I mean, that's you listen to all the podcasts and listen to all the people, and they're like, hey, that was the biggest fear, was fear. What am I doing? I'm going to fail. And honestly, failing is the best thing, because it is the lessons that you get taught. If you never put your hand on that hot stove as a kid, you don't really believe your mom that it's a hot stove. Now,
Yeah.
that just may be me, but that was my lesson.
Some of us learn the hard way, and some of us, learn by observing others and can learn from others. Yeah. Well, I'm
Let's
really
go with
under.
observing and learning from people like you rather than going my way.
Well, the lesson hopefully gets in somehow,
Yes,
but the less painful way can be seeking out guidance for sure.
absolutely.
Hearing you talk, I'm understanding completely now where the open heart part of open heart media came from. Because it sounds like you're just open to learning, open to new experiences, open to other people, open to a lot. So I really appreciate the name of it even more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it is because I think that a lot of times people come in and you know, they they they're, they get tunnel vision on what this is. And I always tell everybody, keep your head on a swivel because you don't know where the next opportunity is going to be. And Open Heart Media certainly has been teaching all of us that lesson. We're so diverse. We have, you know, people who came from corporate sales. We have people who, you know, came from treatment programs and behavioral health. Um, we have people who don't know about any of that. And together we've all just formed this group where we're always exploring. There's nothing that you can't bring to the table. And this is probably the lesson I'm learning the most right now is everybody on this team is part of the team. And if somebody comes and says, hey, I have this idea, the worst thing that you as a leader or anybody can do is say, I'm too busy or no. The best thing you can do is say, hey, let's talk about it and at least explore because you never know where it's going to come from. And you never want to shut that person out like you're not relevant to the process of what we do. And that's the space we're all working on right now, where we're at is being open, listening, and listening to people outside us that come to us and say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Hey, have you thought about doing that? Not shutting it down, but saying, hey, let's explore that. Some are good, some will work, some we don't know,
Right.
you know. And you just that's how you navigate this. There's not a perfect roadmap right now.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that wisdom with the viewers because it was pretty spot on. And you're right. Anyone can have the next great idea for the company. And it's just
Yeah,
it's up to leadership to listen and to take that feedback and to leave each employee feeling valued.
absolutely. 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 I mean, I could think a million times in my life where people have shut me out. And it's like, well, what's my value then? I mean, honestly, I'm just somebody doing work for you. I'm not really valued. So, and that's why I really, I think that's the greatest thing about being able to create an environment where everybody is part of that and everybody can have their input. Um, now you get the crazy ones of, hey, I think we should pay each other 5 times more than we're paying right now. You're like, okay, great. Thanks for the input. I'll buy you lunch. But, it's really important to me and my business partner, Zach, absolutely, we both just really want to do that. And then I know that, we probably are done or need to go, but one last thing that I think we've really done, we're doing that I've never done before, and it really has brought to the whole team a big, huge sense of joy, accomplishment, happiness, is each month we run a philanthropical project. And it's not, to us, it's nothing huge, major. Um, there's we just go out and we go to different foundations or small business companies and we say, okay, for this quarter, we're going to run a contest. And whoever gets the most votes, it's like, like restaurants best in the Atlanta area, you vote on whoever gets the most votes, then we're going to dedicate that we will build a free website for you because we know how hard it is starting. And it's like, people are like, oh, that's going to be anywhere from, X amount of dollars all the way up to 10,000. Now we'll hit it for you and we'll do it and we'll give you that back. And by doing that, everybody on the team is like, okay, we're actually helping people out as well. Because again, remember, we had to have a balance. A lot of people that work for us came from treatment
Mhm.
or came from working behavioral health, and they're used to giving back. They're used to helping. And we didn't want anybody to lose that sense and that feeling because we know it's big for them. So by doing something philanthropical, and again, it doesn't have, this is not us standing on the roof waving a flag, look at us, look at us. This
Mhm.
is us just, hey, let us give back to the community. There's a couple other groups here, Jesse's house that we're talking with, women's shelters, obviously veteran groups that we're working with. And it's just, how can we help you? Because we want to give back. And that's been huge for the team. I think it's very important. Anybody who's going out on their own, you need to give something of yours back to the community because you're getting so much from the community. Don't be selfish.
At the end of it all, it's our ability to be connected with others, right?
Right? Right. Yep. Absolutely. And again, you never know what'll come of it, and you may have a friendship that'll last forever. And that's what it's all about. Because at the end of the day, money comes, money goes, work comes, work goes. It's you, your family, and your friends. That's what counts.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
no, absolutely. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I ran over on you.
Oh no, we're good. We're good. But I just wanted to invite the viewers to look into Open Heart Media.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, sir. I really appreciate you sharing some of yourself with us. And I am Dr. Beth Tumarkin with Breaking Forward Coaching. And thanks for checking us out.